Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Holly and I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I am sharing a recipe from this vintage cookbook, and it's not as big as the last one I showed you, but it's called Anyone Can Bake, and it was about $1 or $1.50 for this book back when it was I think it's $1, 1929. And the last cookbook I showed you was from 1907, so the last one was 115 years old, and I believe this one is 93 years old. But considering the age, it is in decent condition. It is not bad. But it was the Royal Baking Powder Company that produced this book, and it's kind of their product that they used with the recipes and things. Not all the recipes use the baking powder, but it is an interesting cookbook, and it just gives you all the recipes that are in it. Does have a few little stains, but that's okay considering, like I said, 93 years old. Not too bad. And this shows just how to set the table. It can show formal, informal type ways. Especially back then, I know that they probably had more dinner parties and things, so that was something, new housewives and things would probably use. And this is the baking powder that's used for most of these recipes, and you can still get this baking powder today. I actually use Clabber Girl baking powder, but I believe they're both from the same company now, so you can get both of those types of baking powder. But it shows like a level teaspoon, a rounded teaspoon, and what a heaping teaspoon would look like. Now if you have a recipe that calls for that type of measurement, now you know what a level, a rounded, and a heaping teaspoon is. And it just kind of gives you the table of measurements and equivalents, that type of thing. The different temperatures for baking, for frying food, and for like simple syrups and things, the temperatures that you should use. And it even shows the time, so that helps out a new housewife. And just the different pictures that they had for biscuits, and it kind of showed you each one has a step, so I like that. It's kind of almost like the Pioneer Woman has her books, and just the different illustrations that they had. This is the biscuits recipe, and they'll show like the master recipe, and then it will give you different variations that you can make, so it gives you more ideas to make biscuits, the different types. So they're definitely, you wouldn't get bored with the same old biscuit. And it also shows just the different illustrations of those. So I thought that was interesting. Same thing here. Just kind of gives you an idea of what it would look like when you make this type of recipe. And so many different types, variations of things. It even has the cheese straws. But I do love the book, how it has all the pictures and just the steps that you can use. It's just easy to follow when you're trying to make something. And it just shows you just different foods you can choose to use, vegetables, fruits, meats, fish, that type of thing. It gives you some, like it says, simple breakfast, lunches, and dinners. So it'll give you ideas for warm weather breakfast, cold weather breakfast, warm weather lunches, cold weather lunches, and then it does the same warm weather dinners and cold weather dinners. So it just gives you some ideas that you can make, and that was probably helpful, especially back in the day. But some more illustrations of like waffles and pancakes, because you would definitely use baking powder for that. And it gives you the recipe, it gives you the master recipe for muffins, and it gives you those varieties also. So like I said, many different options you can make. And I do love all the illustrations in this book though. And there's a section for making cakes, making a perfect cake, that type of thing. It shows the shortening that you can use, and it's not just like Crisco or anything. You can also use butter as considered shortening, that type of thing. And it just shows the different options there with the sugar and the eggs and the flour. Even like high altitude directions and things. This little mixer here that's shown in this picture, I have one of those, but it's from 1921, and that's what I wanted to kind of show you. Can you imagine having to mix up a cake with this type of gadget? But it's so interesting because this is what was used back then, and I like this particular mixer just because it's something I feel somebody had in their family, and it was used well. But I will say I'm so thankful for my electric mixer because I think it would just have taken so long to bake a cake. And this little picture just reminds me of the Campbell's Soup kids a little bit. It just gives me that feel a little. But this shows like the school lunchbox and what you would pack in the lunchbox for your kids. And it even shows you how to pack those items, because back when we didn't have I guess like the Ziploc bags and things like that, saran wrap, so wax paper I think was used more often than anything to wrap like a sandwich and stuff. It even shows like a mason jar type item you can use to put food in, and just shows like just suggestions for hot home lunches, that type of thing. And this here gives you the evolution of baking powder, just the story of it. You can look that up on the internet too. And this is the recipe I'm going to make from this cookbook, called chicken croquettes, and it's real easy to make. I think they even have recipes online that are similar to this. And there's a section for decorating cakes, and it shows you how to make the bags. And I can remember doing that in high school. We had to make some baking things, and we made them with the just parchment paper. But it just gives you just the different pictures and things. And this was an Easter bunny cake for Easter, and that was made with marshmallows. So that was one of those type of cakes. And the very last page just shows some hints for the young housewife and just ideas to make things a little easier in the kitchen. But it was showing how to keep a cake fresh once you cut it. But it shows you should cut it in the middle first, and then after you take those pieces out, you would put the two pieces together, and that would keep it fresh longer. And very just little easy tips there. But it really was an interesting cookbook. Hope that you enjoyed that. We're going to go ahead and make this recipe for the chicken croquettes. For the recipe, you will need Italian breadcrumbs. It is optional. 1 teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce, 2 cups of chicken, and you want that chopped up, and I used cooked chicken, 1 cup of milk, 2 eggs, 1 tablespoon of parsley, 1/8 of a teaspoon of black pepper, and 1/8 of a teaspoon of paprika. The recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of salt. I would reduce that to 1. Also 2 tablespoons of flour and 2 tablespoons of butter. And you will also need some oil for frying. Melt the butter, and then you will add the flour, and then slowly add the milk once that starts cooking down. And you want to add that slowly, but also make sure that you whisk it or stir it until it's completely smooth. And then after you do that, you will add the salt. And as I said before, I would reduce the salt even to 1/2 teaspoon would probably be fine. 2 is way too much. So that's what the recipe called for, and I really wish I would have reduced it. Add the parsley, add the pepper and paprika. And just stir that in till it's completely incorporated. Add the teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce, and that is optional, so you do not have to add it if you don't like it. But I feel like it gives it more flavor. Now boil that for about 3 minutes and before you add the chicken, and it should get to that thick consistency, and that would be the consistency you want before adding it. But add the chicken, and as I said, some of it's a little shredded, but it's chopped up in little pieces. Then you're going to mix that in with a spoon. So just stir it well. And then once it's completely mixed in, then take it off the stove. Now you want to add that mixture to a plate or a platter, but you will need to put this in the, I put it in the freezer for about 20 minutes or so. You want that to firm up before you start this next step, otherwise it will fall apart. But flour your hands, just put some flour on your hands, and then that way you make it, form it into a ball, because it is a little sticky, a little messy. Just add it to the breadcrumbs first, then into the egg mixture, and I added 2 tablespoons of milk to that. And then put it back into the breadcrumbs, and just try not to overwork the mixture so that way it'll stay in that form. But just continue to do that. So breadcrumbs, egg wash, and then back into the breadcrumbs. Now while you're doing this part, you should have a pan heated up with oil, because you want to have that oil hot enough to put these in. And it goes pretty quickly because everything in this is cooked except for the egg, so you want to make sure that egg is cooked when you do fry this. Now I have a large deep fryer, but it takes about 4 quarts, I think, of oil, so I didn't want to go and use that. So I'm using a small saucepan for this, and I'm just heating the oil up. I'm putting about 4 in at a time. And you can also make these smaller if you want. The recipe said it'll make 14, but I ended up with, I think, 9 total. But you can definitely make it smaller, and also make sure you don't overfill the pan. And like I said, I put 4 in at a time. Get to the desired brownness that you like, and then I just put them onto a rack and let that oil drip off. And this is what it looks like when they're done. As for the salt, it was salty, but I know if I had reduced the salt, these would have been really, really good. They had a nice flavor to it, and then that salt hit you, so just leave some of that salt out. I would, like I said, use maybe half a teaspoon would probably be okay. Just too much salt for the recipe. But overall, it is a good recipe. I feel it would be nice as long as that salt's not in it, and I can't say that enough. But I hope that you enjoyed the video anyway, and please, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, and if you're interested in seeing more videos like it, click that subscribe button and the notification bell. That will notify you when I post new videos. I hope everyone has a blessed day. God bless y'all.